Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Jeffery Combs, welcome to Facebook Live 2 for Tuesday, Persuasion Mastery. Running just a little late here. A lot going on in the Golden Mastermind Studios today. My name is Jeffery Combs. I am the president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars, going on 23 years owning the corporation. If you're just coming on Facebook Live here this afternoon, welcome. Rick Leese, good to see you, Rick. Look forward to coaching you next Tuesday. Hi, Wendy. How are you, Wendy? Good to see you. Bernice, good to see you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Marina, how are you? Jeffrey Feldman. I coached Jay this morning, had a great conversation with Jay. Feel free to reach out to him. Good afternoon, everyone. Callie, good to see you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, good afternoon. Jeffery Combs sitting here in the saddle. We're going to start this Facebook Live in a few moments. Jesse, how are you? Looking forward to coaching you on next Monday. Tell your exceptional husband I said hello. And I had a great message from him last night. Tracy Calvert, Jared Andre, welcome. Wendy, good to see you. Wendy, California, we're opening up. Bernice, does that mean you get to go back to waitressing, Bernice? All right, let's move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. The topic for Facebook Live is this. Every Monday, my assistant, Dylan Albertson, puts these out. This is the promotion that we put out on email and on Facebook. Dylan is a fantastic millionaire apprentice. Jennifer and Yvonne, welcome. Kevin Mayberry and Tracy, good afternoon. So Dylan Albertson is my millionaire apprentice. He's taking my wife to the Verizon store right now. She's getting the i12 phone. So that is it. So Kevin says has no sound. Can everyone hear me? Because if you can't, I'm doing the best I can. So welcome, everyone. Do you hear me? All right, well, let's move into this inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. Persuasion Mastery. So this is the topic for today's Facebook Live. So what I do for every Facebook Live is I do a little outline for the Tuesday call. So today is 2 for Tuesday. So here's my own cliff notes of that. So that's how I do the ones. The ones I do in the evening, I do completely on the fly. Jesse says loud and clear. So let's move into persuasion mastery. Persuasion is not convincing. Persuasion is being able to create a situation where you can persuade yourself, where you can move into a higher state of consciousness. So if you find yourself in avoidance tendencies, procrastination tendency, it's going to be your responsibility to understand how to persuade your lower self to let go so you can move up into your higher self. That's what takes you out of anxiety, fear, and doubt. In sales, branding, marketing, it's your responsibility and it's your objective to be able to create content that's persuasive. That in politics and life, politicians and judges and juries are persuaded. A attorney can be persuasive. And if you know anything about law, you will find out that oftentimes it's discovery that matters. So it's the discovery that really matters, not whether you're innocent or guilty, but and you've seen many people because of persuasion skills walk because of situations and also because of persuasion skills. We marry people, we date people, we join businesses because we are persuaded. We begin to see a different point of view. So I want to say hello to Lori. Who else did I see there? Amy, Kevin, good to see you. So welcome, everyone. So the topic is persuasion, and it's a very important topic when you want to be able to get your point across. So you want to be able to do it without forcing someone, without being angry, without being pissed off, without being frustrated, but you want to be able to be persuasive. And persuasive is you're able to articulate. Now, I was covering this with some of my clients in the last 2 days, how many people still are in this state after 11, 12, 13 years of social media, how many people still have anxiety about being able to write content. And writing content means you're able to articulate your feelings and release them into the universe. Your ego oftentimes will say, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to think? What are people going to think of me? And I'll say, who are these people? And hardly, if ever, can anyone even define who these people are. So persuasion mastery means you become masterful at being able to read the situation for what it is. Now, Cara DeChico Sandre just joined us here this afternoon. Cara is a very good influencer. She's a very good persuader. Cara has a very special niche as a healer, and she is very skilled at assisting people to understand their emotional addictions and their food allergies. Dr. Duke Leviteri is also in today's Facebook Live. He is very skilled at assisting the body to persuade itself to go back into alignment. There are many techniques of chiropractic. BEST is one, bioenergetic synchronistic technique, and then there's the Reiki masters, and there's other healers who are able to assist you with your chakras and other places in your body where there's an alignment that happens, and that alignment can happen from letting go. If you ever had neck pain, back pain, a lot of times the neck pain and the back pain is not only from the injury or the accident, it's the emotional issues that we hold on to. You also want to be able to persuade your body to heal itself. Rather than standing in line at the pharmacy and then taking the red pill or the blue pill. You want to become your own holistic practitioner where you begin to persuade yourself to let go. But when you live in a state of overwhelm, you go, I don't know why I do this. I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. You're not being persuasive. You're in a field of force. And so when you're forcing yourself, you can't possibly heal. Now, Cara DeChico Sandre is on today's Facebook Live. She's not always on here because she sees clients a lot. I highly recommend you reach out to her, and if she offers a free coaching session for 20 minutes, but she does muscle testing. Now, in muscle testing doesn't lie. So she's a very, very skilled muscle tester. And if you have physical ailments, she can assist you to understand how the body does not lie. And so there's no persuasion going on. That's reading. And so also in recovery, in sobriety, in consciousness, it's going to be your responsibility. It's a reflex, the ability to respond. And that means it's your responsibility to also cooperate. That's persuasive. But when you're overwhelmed, when you're pissed off, when you don't understand, when you're, and right, Duke, the subluxation. So a lot of subluxations that happen in the neck and back are due to mind-body conditions. And Dr. Duke is a very, very skilled chiropractor, but he's also a very skilled entrepreneur. I mean, he's very skilled at creating money and assets, and I highly recommend you reach out to him sometime. That's Duke Leviteri. I love his dog, Fritzy, German short hair. I grew up with him. So, and he will tell you the same situation, that when people come in locked up and they can't move their neck, well, there's oftentimes more going on than a subluxation. There's oftentimes a lot more going on in the emotional code. That's right. Jennifer Spar just pointed that out. So I want to give Jennifer. So a lot of times our emotional code is locked up, and if we can persuade ourselves to let go, that's what prayer is. That's what meditation is. This is what some people are masters at healing. Then there's tinctures, and there's many situations that you can do to persuade yourself. Now, in business, it's also important that you become persuasive. That means your ability to articulate. So when you communicate with people, you don't want to be so overwhelmed that you can't communicate, and you don't want to be so abrasive or so desperate that you're not able to deliver the message. So in being able to be persuasive, so when someone says, well, this sounds good, I don't have the money, your objective is not to talk them in to getting the money. It's going to be your objective to be able to find out what the objection is by asking another question. There are times in conversation when your perspective can persuade someone to let go. Your perspective can let someone see the light in the end of the tunnel. I've closed thousands of sales, not by convincing someone, but by being persuasive, and that's finesse. That requires repetition and experience, and it's not by having the gift of gab or believing you can sell anything to anyone, because you're going to counter resistance at times. Many people are going to tell you they can't, they won't, they don't, they're not able to, they want to talk to someone else, and you won't be able to overcome all those, but because of your own persuasive skills, and if you're skilled at fact-finding, rapport building, oftentimes you can go further in the conversation and find out what the real objection is. Thank you, Matt. Good to see you this afternoon. So the first situation you want to focus on is persuading yourself. And that starts with I am good enough. You begin to persuade yourself that you're good enough, you're capable, you're lovable, you're able to Be here and be now. Kate says blessings, everyone. Kate Grace is with us here this afternoon, everyone. Kate is the host of the Highland Inspiring group, Let Go, and Matt Smith is with us. He is the host of the Facebook group, Mastering the Tides, which is a sobriety group. So you can join both those groups. Both those groups are very persuasive because they persuade you to let go and they persuade you to move into higher levels of recovery and sobriety. And so by hosting those groups, both of them have become persuasive and influencers, and people follow them. So Bryce Thompson sent me a message late last night as he had an exceptional day in recovery, and he let me know that just like right now, he stated he's good enough. Kate Grace just stated she's good enough. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and just state right here that you're good enough. Rick Steiner just did it. So by saying that, now you believe it. By saying it and believing it, you're persuading your lower self that you're no longer the mind-body connection to the events of trauma, disease, overwhelm, rejection, abandonment, anger, hate, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, and overwhelmed feelings. Those are the lower self that we continue to hold on to. Now, Matt Smith, who's on today's Facebook Live, he's also a master technician in a skill called neuro-linguistic programming. I've been studying NLP since the 80s. Matt studied with people that I never got to study with, Richard Bandler, John Grinder. I had the privilege of getting to know Persuasion Engineering. Matt, who wrote the book Persuasion Engineering with Grinder. Go ahead and put John Laval. I had the privilege of having John Laval in my group. Laval is one of the top NLP practitioners that I have ever met. Julia says, I'm good enough. Thank you. A lot of you are saying you're good enough. I'm good enough. All right, so be persuasive in that energy today. And in being good enough, it means you don't require anyone else's opinion for you to be good enough. You don't require anyone's outside influence to be good enough. So someone could say, you're a dick, I hate you, or they could say any of these things, but in being good enough, you'd be able to say, I understand, I appreciate your opinion. That would be a different reflex than you learned as a child, because as a child, you learned to be in fight or flight. Why didn't you get an A+? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you make the cheerleading team? Why didn't you make the basketball team? Why were you late? So when you're criticized frequently over and over, it becomes a reflex to go into fight or flight. And that reflex starts to create an emotional tolerance. So if you're 35, 45, 50, 55, 60, and you're holding on to being rejected, you have a high tolerance to being rejected. And so your body will create a situation to fulfill the feeling. So you begin persuading yourself that you're good enough, you're lovable, you're capable. But when your ego goes, I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't understand, this doesn't make sense. Making sense is not the issue. Being able to understand why you do what you do. So this is why so many people wrestle with the payoff, because the payoff is the situation you do over and over to fulfill low self-esteem based on a series of emotions that you're holding on to. And when letting go becomes understood, then you can move into a state of always letting go. Then you're not in the analytical egoic mind, the reptilian brain that says, I don't understand this doesn't make sense. Why would I want to suffer? Well, it's not so much that you want to suffer, but suffering has become a way of life. So struggling and suffering becomes an identity. And then when your ego goes, well, that's stupid. It's not actually stupid, it's familiar. And when you keep doing the same thing over and over, it means your lower self has persuaded you to believe you're not good enough. So the first person you persuade is yourself. And that's not selfish. But if your ego goes, well, that's selfish, then once again, you can't overcome your own guilt until you understand it and let go. Yvonne says there is no rejection. Cindy says, good afternoon. Thank you, Cindy. Good to see you on today's Facebook Live. Then in persuading others, now it's imperative you understand that in persuading others, you're not controlling them. You're not trying to force them. But there's points where your intel, your intellect, will be able to give people insight. And when you're coming from no ego, when you're coming from consciousness, and you're not concerned about being rejected, and you're not attached to the outcome, then you're in clarity. You can communicate with people persuasively because you're not going to be mad or angry if your viewpoint isn't seen, or you're not going to be mad or angry if the person doesn't buy from you, or you're not going to be mad or angry if the person doesn't want to go on a date with you. When someone says, I just don't think we're a good match, it's going to be important that you understand You want your ego not to get in the way and go, I got rejected. I can't believe she did that. What a rude, arrogant. See, that's the analytical egoic brain. That is the reptilian brain that wants to be hurt and traumatized, that sees lions and tigers when someone's saying, I'm not in a position to buy. I don't really think we're a good match for a date. Or I think I'll pass on that opportunity right now. It's your responsibility to hear in the now and in the now and in the present that's not rejection. So when you use your persuasive skills and you don't get the outcome, that doesn't mean you quit being persuasive. It means you enhance them, you improve them, you become better at these skills. And as you start to have in communication, as you start to create a communication style that's a repetition experience, you communicate the same way over and over. You ask the same series of questions. When you're calling someone, it's the same series of questions. When you communicate with someone, you have a communication style that allows you to adapt and adjust, and you're very persuasive in the way that's influencing and affluencing. And when you write content, you're able to write content that reaches people. That's persuasion. When people go, oh my God, you must have written that just for me. That's persuasive. I mean, it's important you understand what persuasion is and isn't, so that you're not worried and anxious about an outcome that hasn't happened. You're in a let go space, so that you are you and you are free. Now, there are people who are predictable, and there are going to be people who are not going to be persuasive because they want to be right. There's that type of personality. There's a type of personality that's not able to see the value of an opportunity. There's going to be people who are very difficult. You'll encounter people who would rather be right than rich. You'll encounter people who can't be decisive and can't make decisions. And the more you understand people, the more predictable they are. That empowers you, because then you're not attached to the outcome, and you're able to easily and effortlessly and diplomatically avoid conflict, not turn a situation into something that's critical, so you're not criticizing them and you're not criticizing you. And you understand that not everyone's going to see your persuasion skills, and you're able to easily and effortlessly let go. So you're not internalizing. You're not internalizing about someone else, and you're not internalizing about yourself. Now, the qualification process comes down to the way you write. So if you want someone to join your sales funnel, if you want someone to follow you, well, then you want to be able to use language that's conducive to the outcome. If you want to give away a product to bring people into a sales funnel, or if you're going to have an open house, you want to be able to write content or speak that content that's persuasive for people to feel relaxed about joining that process. But if you're very rigid, or if you're anxious, or if you have fear and doubt, then you're telegraphing it. Persuasion skill requires you to be free. As you're persuading, you want to have a better understanding of predictability, why people buy. You want to understand that the value proposition. When you're offering something, there's a value proposition to it. So even when you're offering your services to someone for free, or you're offering yourself up for charity, you want to come from value and service. So, but if you don't have any value, then you're not going to be very persuasive. Because when you're going to be persuasive by being yourself. When you're yourself, you're not trying to persuade someone, because you are you, and your energy is you, and your charisma is persuasive, because your charisma is coming from love, it's coming from joy, it's coming from bliss, it's coming from passion, it's coming from contribution. So when you try to be persuasive, it's very forced, but when you let go, your persuasion becomes easy and effortless, and people want to join you because of you, not because you have an ego or because you have a bank account, but because you are you, and you're not concerned about a bank account, or you're not concerned with how much success you have or had. This is an area that many people are not able to be persuasive, because they come from this place: I haven't, so I can't. I haven't succeeded, so I can't teach someone else. That's not even the purpose. The purpose is not to teach someone. The purpose is to present the opportunity, or present yourself. Well, I can't go on a date with someone because I don't have any money. Well, when you telegraph that, you can still go on a date whether you have money or not. That's your story that you're telling yourself. And so many people persuade themselves out rather than persuade themselves in. So that's your lower self that talks you out. It's your higher self. You don't have to talk in your higher self. That you don't talk yourself in, because you're in. There's nothing pre in front of that self. Because in self-esteem, there's no preclude to it. So in self-esteem, yourself, there's nothing. That's you. There's no explanation. And when also in persuasion, it's very persuasive when you know, because when you know, you know. And when you know, you don't have to persuade anyone because you're persuasive. Your energy is persuasive. So when someone says, how do you know? You stand right in the middle of it and you go, I know. Well, persuade me. And you would say, I'm not in that position. And you can just detach from it because you know there's nothing going to happen there. And you're able to exit, back away, and not feel rejected or abandoned. Scott Lucas, good to see you. Tom Nash says, I do not have to be a great presenter to be a great producer. That's absolutely correct. Even the term greatness is over. It's so over. I mean, I'd rather be myself than be great. I mean, everything else will take care of itself when you're yourself. But when you try to be great, when you're forcing, I mean, there's a lot of force that goes on in that type of dichotomy. That's the win-lose, good, bad, right, wrong dichotomy that comes from a place called force, counterforce. But when you're in power, you're very persuasive because you can walk into a room without in esteem, in self-esteem, and people will feel you. And when you're not trying to be felt, is when they feel you. But when you have to talk yourself into something, that's not persuasion, that's convincing. And persuasion is a much more relaxed energy. Convincing is very forced. Convincing comes from desperation. And that's what you see in a lot of the media. They're attempting to convince us to believe situations that are lies. You'll see this, and many of you have checked out of watching that kind of content because you understand the narrative is not about persuasion, it's about seduction. And they're attempting to seduce us into believing a situation that this color is this color. No, orange is blue. Don't you see it? And if you don't see that orange is blue, then you have to be wrong. We're the media. We're telling you that orange is blue. And if you don't see it, then we're going to cancel you. That's the cancel culture. And many of you witnessed this in the last 12 months. It's been head swiveling, to say the most, for a large percent of society. But when you start to understand how you start to understand how you're being convinced and forced rather than persuaded. It's a big difference as you start, right. 2 + 2 = 5, Kate Grace says. So that's my content for today. I'm going to be back here tonight on 2 for Tuesday. And I'm going to be covering for the next few days content from The Breakthrough Factor, my book that I wrote in 2018. It really started to have my own awareness that I wrote this book in 2018 and never really did a whole lot with it. I started leafing through it the other day and go, oh my God, this is great content in here. So I'm going to bring that book to Facebook Live tonight at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. Now, can you feel my energy today? I'm feeling you. So and I want to congratulate all of you one more time if you can. If you can give yourself the acknowledgement, I'm good enough. As you leave the Facebook Live today, just rub your hands a little, do a little abdomen breathing, connect with your lower self. Carla Vilches is on today's Facebook Live. Carla, let them know where they can reach you. Carla is another top tier healer that is one of I'm her client, so you can reach out to Carla. She is a top tier chiropractor, quantum healer who does phone readings and many other situations. California is now back open. We're starting to open, so I'm planning on a Breakthroughs to Success in a protege quantum consciousness event this year. So I'll be letting you know just as soon as the mask mandate is over, and we'll move back into that. So all of you coaching clients, you'll be able to come to one of those events free in Stockton, California. Debbie Fair, good to see you. Cindy, Julius, good to see you. Thank you for being on today's Facebook Live, everyone. Bob Campbell, you are the man, Bob. Good to connect with you. So just give yourself that I'm good enough. Go out into the universe today. Breathe through it. Attract your reality. Quality, like-minded, then fill in the blanks. Success seeker, soulmate, teammate, vendor, contractor. Looking forward to connecting with everyone. Have a great afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.